Anyone who knows me knows that I have a deep fascination with both religion and with the occult. Demons have been a particularly big focus in my life for well over a decade, to the point where I have many times been accused of being a devil worshipper. So of course, the Blaze Fiend theme is something that has been a favourite of mine since release, as aside from Dark Lords and the TCG, this is one of the few times where Yugioh has dived deep into demons and facets of religion that are otherwise untouched or ignored, and made it into a full theme rather than just one-off cards. So, for this video, I'd like for it to be a bit of a guide to the inspirations of each of the cards, the history of each demon, and something a little more in depth than my usual videos. I hope you find this subject as interesting and as fascinating as I do, and if not, then I hope you'll have come out of this a little bit more knowledgeable on the esoteric and the unholy. Just as a quick disclaimer, this video will discuss religion, demons, and Israel. There is no political stance or messaging in this video, and I will decline to discuss these matters. Israel and its people are being discussed in a purely historical manner. There will be no slandering of religions of any kind. Further, there are many interpretations and ideas in every account of these demons, and so due to this, many accounts may seem contradictory to each other. Please interpret these as you see fit. Blaze Fiends debuted in Rush Duel in November 2021, featuring the first Fiend Maximum in the game, and also notably being the first Maximum theme to debut with two Maximum monsters, Doom Blaze Fiend Overlord Desperation and Blaze Fiend Overlord Belustaroth. Belustaroth is notable for being the first Maximum monster to not be level 10, only reaching that level via its own effect. Desperation is notable also for being the first Maximum monster to have 3 components capable of activating their effects, even while not in Maximum mode. Design-wise, they also vary. While Desperation is based on the artist's idea of a big cool demon, this little monster came to life when at the time the design for the Overrush rare foiling was finalised. I said, this is a perfect fit for Maximum monsters, I want to create an original Maximum. Since we wanted more fire attribute cards in the card pool, I wanted it to incorporate lots of flame components, and also I requested the addition of elements that would be highlighted by the Overrush rarity, saying, a demon, a ruler of hell, it uses massive snakes. When we saw the finalised reference art, everyone involved was super excited about how excessively cool it looked, and with that energy, we finalised the details for the world setting of the Blaze Fiends. Belustaroth, on the other hand, is based on actual demons. As a Maximum, it is naturally 3 separate cards combined into 1 card upon summon, which explains the name as being a fusion of the 3 entities shown in the art. In John Milton's 1667 epic poem, Paradise Lost, each member of this Maximum monster are members of the Unholy Trinity featured in the poem, composed of Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth. Dissecting each member of the Maximum, we'll start with the leftmost member of the Trinity, Beelzebub. In Belustaroth L and his separate level 10 version, Blaze Fiend Overlord Zebulth, it is a representation of Beelzebub, depicted as a large demonic fly, which is historically accurate, as many artworks and interpretations over the years have shown Beelzebub to be a gigantic fly. This is because one of the more notable names for Beelzebub is Lord of the Flies. As a member of the 7 Princes of Hell, a classification of demons who represent the 7 deadly sins, he is the sin of gluttony, which fits his fly-like appearance and nickname perfectly, as flies are well known for being voracious eaters. Beelzebub's name comes from Baal-zebub, a name used in the Book of Kings, which is canonical in both Christian and Jewish traditions discussing Israelite monarchy, such as the death of King David and the kings that had come afterwards, and Babylonian exile. In this book, Baal-zebub was the god of the formerly Canaanite city before later becoming Philistine city, the city of Ekron, and the king of Ekron, a man named King Ahaziah, had repeatedly sought guidance from Baal-zebub, something which the prophet Elijah had condemned him for. And he said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, for as much as thou hast sent messengers to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, is it because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore thou shalt not come down from the bed, whether thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. Baal-zebub's name is referenced in Blaze Fiend Overlord Zebulth, and his worship in Ekron can be linked back to the Canaanites, as Ekron was once a Canaanite city before being assimilated by the Philistine people, who were likely Greek immigrants from the Aegean. Beelzebub's name can be shortened down to Baal, who himself was an entirely different god in the Canaanite religion, chiefly being the god of storms and fertility, amongst other things. He was an important god until the destruction of Canaan by the Israelites as part of an intervention from God, which might lend credence to how Baal had ended up being Beelzebub in Judaism, as Baal was believed to be a false god that stood in direct opposition to the Hebrew god Yahweh. Beelzebub's name may also be alternatively spelt as Baal-Zevul. As Beelzebub means Lord of the Flies, Zevul has a different meaning, which is like a temple or an abode, and this might have been his true name at one point, but later changed to the more derogatory Zebub by the Israelites. Beelzebub is one of the higher ranking demons of hell, which, as I said previously, is a representation of an aspect of the 7 deadly sins in the Testament of Solomon, a text written about King Solomon, the 4th monarch of Israel, who owned a ring with the ability to summon demons. He is described as meeting Beelzebub.
And I summoned again to stand before me Beelzebub, the prince of demons, and I sat him down on a raised seat of honour, and said to him, Why art thou alone, prince of the demons? And he said to me, Because I alone am left of the angels of heaven that came down, for I was the first angel in the first heaven, being entitled Beelzebub, and now I control all those who are bound in Tartarus.
Which implies a different origin for Beelzebub, as one of the fallen angels from the war in heaven, which saw half of God's angels launch a rebellion against him in solidarity with Lucifer. More on that later. But this origin fits more in line with Greek mythology, as it is a non-canonical text written originally in Greek, an example of this in the text being mentioned in Tartarus, which in Greek mythology is meant to be a prison for the wicked and evil in the deepest and darkest abyss of the underworld. Tartarus as a concept does not exist in either Christian or Jewish canon, though other similar places do exist. First heaven is interesting to note as well in the quote, as it is said in both Judaism and Christianity that there is a concept of 3 heavens. The first heaven, as Beelzebub describes, is the heaven that exists around us. It is the air, the atmosphere, and the sky, as it is our physical realm. In the Testament of Solomon, Beelzebub describes himself as having the ability to create allegiances and destruction with foreign tyrants, being able to cause priests to give in to the temptations of lust, sin, and heresy, and inspires men with hatred, envy, and anger to commit sins such as murder, sodomy, and war, amongst others. This interpretation of Beelzebub can be seen as a more outwardly evil incarnation of himself, outright admitting to committing evil acts and forcing others to do his bidding. Next we'll take a look at Belusatroth R, with the inspiration for the card being Astaroth. While there is no separate card yet for Astaroth, we can see from a single interpretation that he takes direct inspiration from Johann Weir's description of him in the 1577 appendix Pseudo-Monarcha Daemonum.
Astaroth is a great and strong duke, coming forth in the shape of a foul angel, sitting upon an infernal dragon, and carrying on his right hand a viper.
As we can see from the artwork, he is sat on a dragon-like creature and holds a serpent in his right hand. Also in the artwork, Astaroth is depicted in a more feminine manner, as opposed to the normal masculine representation, as the name Astaroth is likely inspired by Astarte, a goddess from the Near East, and again is particularly associated with worship in Levant and among the Canaanites. While they are likely not the same deity, it is important to note the connection between the two, as the card artist has. Astaroth is a representation of the sin of sloth, and is said to tempt those with self-doubt and laziness into wickedness. He is also said to lead 40 legions of demons in hell, and those that make contact with him can gain power over serpents, make men invisible, reveal hidden treasures, and like many other demons in the Ars Goetia, he specialises in teaching people about mathematics and sciences. He is also said to be a great mentor, and has a preference towards helping human affairs, primarily being matters of politics and business. And finally for this maximum, we'll discuss Belusatroth's middle card, which depicts Lucifer himself, as well as the card Blaze Fiend Overlord Lucius. To talk about Lucifer, it's important to discuss his history and his eventual downfall. To begin, I would like to make it clear that Satan, Lucifer, and the Devil, which are all names used interchangeably, and not normally referring to the same entity, and I think it's important to explain each of these. Lucifer as a character isn't prominently featured in the Bible, if at all, depending on which version you read, but Satan is. Satan himself is said to be an adversary of God, like Lucifer, and is also seen as a fallen angel in the same vein. However, Satan and Lucifer are two distinct entities. Satan is also named half-Satan in Hebrew, or translated to the Satan in English. In Judaism and the Old Testament, he is seen as a prosecutor and a subordinate to God or Yahweh. It is in this role that he judges humanity, testing their faith and loyalty to God, as well as to show God how humanity may move further away from him. Not only this, but he judges those that commit sin on God's behalf. In the New Testament, Satan appears before Jesus in an attempt to steer him away from his path, hoping to tempt the Son of God to commit sin. Jesus, however, pushed back against this, and declared Satan to be the father of lies. Satan can also be understood, based upon this, to be the serpent that tempts Eve in the Garden of Eden, once again showing himself to be an arbiter of humanity and to test their commitment to God. It's in this role that we can see that Satan differentiates greatly from depictions of Lucifer and the devil, but Satan and Lucifer are normally names used interchangeably, and some of their actions can be confusing as to whether or not it is one or the other, which we'll get to later. Devil, on the other hand, is a more mythological being rather than one of absolute fact, as mostly all cultures and religions, past and present, have depictions of a personification of evil, with exceptions like in Mesopotamia, which believed evil was just another aspect of nature rather than being specifically something created by a deity or a being. In fact, among the first depictions of a deity that was said to be the absolute personification of evil was Angra Mainyu in Zoroastrianism. Even despite Lucifer's acts pre-Bible, he is not necessarily depicted as this greater evil or a source of evil in the world, but rather as a fallen angel who opposed God and authority. However, the war in heaven, which we will discuss shortly, is said to be the origin of all evil. And with that, I can now further discuss Lucifer's history. Lucifer was initially mentioned in the King James Version of the Bible in Isaiah 14:12.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?
He is referred to in the text as the son of the morning, and is also referred to as the morning star, sharing a connection with the planet Venus, which also shares the same name, as Venus in the morning will resemble a falling star, similar to how Lucifer fell from heaven. Similarly, in Latin, Lucifer means the planet Venus, and also Lightbringer. In Hebrew, Lucifer's name is Hillel, meaning shining one. Many religions and cultures have had similar stories in the past of a shining figure, or a figure associated with the morning star Venus. For example, our old friends by this point, the Canaanites, had one, who was said to have attempted to ascend the heavens and build his own throne, but was instead cast out and thrown to the depths of the underworld instead, which provides an interesting parallel to how Christian and Jewish lore explains the story of the war in heaven. The war in heaven is the biggest and most significant event of Lucifer's story, as it was told in some texts that he was the favourite among God's angels, ranking above all other angels. However, jealousy took hold as he couldn't understand why humanity, who were born from red clay rather than light as the angels were God's most favourite creation. The idea of becoming a servant, as God has intended the angels to be towards humanity, what Lucifer perceived to be a lesser creation, had enraged him to the point of beginning a rebellion against God, having half of his fellow angels follow him into battle, no longer wishing to be under the thumb of God's rule. In the Bible, it is said that a giant red dragon had appeared and attacked heaven, with the archangel Michael leading the offensive against the serpent, who was in fact Satan, and later defeated and cast out of heaven. It was this act that was meant to be the genesis to the existence of evil, and thusly equated Satan to the devil himself. However, in other texts, Lucifer was said to have directly charged God himself, and had failed in his effort to supplant him and was banished to the depths of hell, becoming a fallen angel, along with the other angels who had followed him in his fight. Moving on from the maximum monsters, we'll next take a look at the two new ritual monsters, Archel and Luniel. To begin, we'll look at Archel. Archel is a combination of Archangel and Samael, which Samael did rank as an archangel when he was a part of God's army. In his artwork, he is holding a sword that looks almost serpentine, referencing a child of Samael's named literally the Sword of Samael. Samael's characterization is a bit more complex than previous demons discussed so far, as it is unclear in every interpretation of him about whether he is truly a fallen angel or can even be regarded as evil. Samael is known as the Venom of God, being named as the Angel of Death and the one whose duties include more grim matters, like the killing of sinners, also being the one who engineered the plan for the downfall of Adam and Eve and their eventual banishment from the Garden of Eden by using a serpent. Interestingly, Samael is named in some later midrashic texts as the head of Satan's, and in the Ascension of Isaiah, Samael is used as a name for Satan and is mentioned several times under different names, all declaring him the embodiment of evil. Despite this, Samael in all other texts is seemingly not actually Satan at all, despite sharing similar stories in regard to tempting Eve with a serpent and killing sinners. Samael is mentioned in the Book of Enoch, where he is designated as being one of the Watchers, a group of angels who came to Earth to reproduce with human women, although he is not the leader. That actually goes to Samyaza, who has a very nice statue, by the way. I do appreciate that statue a lot. He is later said to be the husband of Lilith, and said to have transformed into a serpent and impregnates her, creating a legion of demon children, the Lithim and the Lilin. These children are related to succubi and incubi, respectively, demons who lust for humans and will attempt to reproduce with human men and women and tempt them to commit sins. Moving on to Luniel, as a card, she is meant to be Archel's counterpart, and it is fair to assume that she is meant to be Lilith as well. It would make sense since around the 16th century, Lilith and Samael were mentioned for the first time being together rather than separate entities, now as husband and wife. Visually, her artwork shows her with a snake, as Lilith is commonly depicted holding a serpent, but it is also said that Samael, as a serpent, rides upon her and engages in procreation with her. Unlike Samael, Lilith has a long and varied history. In Mesopotamian society, she was said to be the demon responsible for the creation of disease and death. However, the more prominent story of Lilith actually comes from Abrahamic religions, where she was said to have been the first wife of Adam before Eve was even created, and she lived in the Garden of Eden with Adam. She left after Adam had demanded that she lay beneath him during intercourse, something which she took great offence to, as it would mean that she was subservient to him, questioning why she had to lay beneath him when they were both born from dust and were both born equal. Adam disagreed with her assessment, and so she left the garden, and with her own free will, she was said to have mated with demons instead, including the fallen angel Samael. Later, Adam begged God to allow Lilith to come back, and so God sent 3 angels, Sinoi, Sansinoi, and Samangaloth, to find Lilith. When they found her, she was bearing children, and she had declined to return to the garden. Out of anger, she was told that for disobeying God, 100 of her children would be killed every day. She became a demon herself after this, and continued to birth more children, while also being said to take the lives of children in the night, as a revenge against God and his slaughter of her own children. Their ritual spell card, Altar of the Twin Blaze Fiends, further establishes a connection to serpents, with the artwork depicting a giant statue of a horned snake, similar to some depictions of Samael. And now just to quickly talk about the smaller Blaze Fiends, we'll start off with Eternal Wolf of the Blaze Fiends. This monster is visually a depiction of a hellhound, which is said to be black with glowing red eyes and to be unnaturally big, as well as being accompanied by flames. All of these are very clearly shown in the artwork, minus the flames, though there are some wisps of flames in the art, and the fire attribute, I suppose you could take it as being the flames. Eternal Wolf being a gatekeeper for the Blaze Fiends falls in line with the idea that hellhounds are commonly said to be guardians in hell. Guide of the Blaze Fiends, on the other hand, is meant to be a psychopomp, which is said to be a being that is meant to guide souls to the afterlife. Their role is specifically to guide souls, not to judge them. They are said to come in many forms, such as animals like birds, snake, deer, humans, etc. Visually, it fits the descriptions of a psychopomp perfectly, and carrying a cage in its feet that one would assume is how the guide takes the souls to the eventual destination. Rage Serpent of the Blaze Fiends, finally, is a serpentine sword. I don't have to say too much at this point. I mean, if you've reached this far, you'll know by now that serpents are basically depictions of evil in a lot of religious texts. I mean, come on. You know? But they are often seen to be aligned with Satan and Lucifer and other demonic entities. Rage Serpent also actually resembles the sword Archel holds in his artwork. Perhaps this is the sword of Samael, but at a lower level than it's shown in the Ritual Monsters art. And finally, I'm not saying it is, but the building shown being torn apart in Corruption of the Blaze Fiends looks a decent bit like the house featured burning in Ukazi. Maybe the Blaze Fiends did set fire to the house in Ukazi, and then they just decided to tear it apart. Who knows, maybe they done it. Literally right as I finished recording this video, Police Hound of the Blaze Fiends is now shown up as a newly revealed card. Like, what a crazy coincidence. Same thing again as Eternal Wolf. This is another Hellhound. I mean, it's very clearly obvious that if Eternal Wolf is meant to be a gatekeeper, this is meant to be the wolf that, or dog or whatever, that, you know, catches those souls to put them into hell or whatever. I don't know, this is like super off the cuff. With that, we've come to the end of this introduction to the Blaze Fiends and their historical and religious origins. I hope you enjoyed this look into the crazy world of demons, and maybe I've also given you a greater appreciation for the deck as well. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.